It is now. Good morning. I'm Shirley Brown, the chair of the Sarasota County School Board, and I'd like to open this Convocation of Governments meeting, January 15th, 2021. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We're a little unique today. In fact, we have some people here in person and others are seeing it via Zoom. But let's start introductions at the table, and then Jamal, can you get the ones online to do introductions after we get back here? Let's start to my right. Say your name and where you represent.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Jane Goodwin, and I'm Vice Chair of the Sarasota County School Board.
I'm Jill Luke, the Mayor of City of Northport.
Jason Yarborough, Interim City Manager.
Pete Emmerich, Vice Mayor, City of Northport.
Nick Pashota, City of Venice City Council Member.
Ed LaValle, City Manager, Venice.
Jonathan Lewis, County Administrator, Sarasota County.
Alan Mayo, Chairman, Sarasota County Board of Commissioners.
Marlon Brown, Interim City Manager for the City of Sarasota. No pressure on my mayor, but I would love to lose the interim in front of my title.
We'll see. Hagan Brody, Mayor of the City of Sarasota.
Brennan Asplin, Superintendent, Sarasota County Schools.
Thank you. And who's joining us online?
Okay, let's go ahead and start announcing online, please.
Jenna Hernkoch, Commissioner, City of Sarasota.
Mike Moran, Sarasota County Commission.
Liz Alpert, Sarasota City Commissioner.
Lori Moran, Teen Court, Sarasota, Chief Operating Officer.
Ron Cutzinger, Sarasota County Commission.
Debbie McDowell from the amazing City of Northport.
Mitzi Fiedler from the City of Venice, City Commissioner.
Rich Cotero, Vice Mayor, City of Venice.
Bridget Ziegler, Sarasota County School Board.
Tom Edwards, Sarasota County School Board.
I want to go where Tom is.
Tom Harmer, Town of Longboat Key.
Rob Lewis, Sarasota County Government.
Anyone else?
Okay, our first convocation was in 2005. This is our 13th. We've got a tight schedule. We hope to conclude by 11 a.m. and we will have an opportunity for the public to speak. And we have one card. But if anyone else here wants to speak at the meeting, please fill out the speaker's card and give it to our assistant, Kathy Tompkins. Where is she? Well, let's just give it to Linda there over here. The agenda includes a presentations on 4 items, which are the update on the school district enrollment and planning for the future, COVID-19 update from the Sarasota County Health Department, and the surtax update by the Sarasota County government. And the agenda also includes a time for each local government to give a short update or discuss any other business they might have that to share with the group. And so let's get started. I have one card, and I think this is the one allocated to the public down at the end, that mic. Okay. Michael McLaughlin in Venice wants to talk about cycling and biking. Welcome, Michael.
Hello. It's cool to be here. And I guess I have a question for you guys. Did anybody here ride their bike today? No? Public transportation? Anybody here take the bus? Does anyone want to answer why or why not? There was no public transportation taken to this meeting? Do we not have the infrastructure set up to get people from their homes to this meeting?
Normally, this is about things with the school district and how we interact. And of course, we do have busing issues, but normally those things we take up with the individual districts at the time an issue comes up.
Okay,
And if you have an issue like with Venice, the best place to take that up would be at the Venice City Commission.
I don't have an issue. I think that, even walking in, I see the sign that says planning for the future. And it's cool because I noticed that there's people from Northport, from Sarasota, from Venice, from all these different areas. And we need to get connected between cities, not just, Venice dealing with Venice and their cycling and their busing. If you can't get from Venice to Sarasota and from Sarasota to Northport and from Northport down to Manatee County, if we can't do that without getting in these personalized vehicles that, in the future, as we plan for the future, they're going to be less and less. We can't be as dependent on them as we have been in the past. And, we're seeing that happen. We will see it continue to happen in progressive cities, not even around the country, but around the world, who are taking great steps to improve their cycling infrastructure, their public transportation. And if this area, these counties, Venice, Sarasota, if they want to be progressive and actually step into the future, they're going to put time and attention into building better infrastructure to transport people, to transport kids. Right now it's, we're talking about the school district. Well, okay, well, how are these kids going to be getting to and from school, right? Just how these kids then are even then going to be taught about transportation, what's expected of them, and just what is normal for them to grow up in a city. Is it where their parents are driving, these cars, everyone's driving personalized vehicles, or is it going to be more the norm to take public transportation to places? And are we going to have that infrastructure in place for them so that they can do that and make those decisions?
Thank you. On my way here, I went on Weber, and I saw that the railroad tracks are being paved over, and I know that the county is working on plans to connect. Would you like to comment on where we are on the trail? And how that connects from north to south?
I can. We don't usually, in our practice, we don't usually respond to public
Okay.
comment. We let public comment go. But
my note
yes,
says
the
it's
county is
allowed.
very active on Legacy Trail. The project is currently scheduled ahead of schedule. It's in different components. So we've spent a lot of time and effort on the connector down to Northport. Our board has authorized 3 different connections to Northport, not just the one that had been originally planned. We've gotten very good response back from SwiftMud, even as recently as last week, that they're on board with that particular program and what we want to do there. And then in North County, it's broken up into segments. taking first the pieces that had the least amount of conflicts and getting going on those concurrently while we settled conflicts in others. So we expect significant portions of it up operational as we go, including the part that connects us to downtown Sarasota, by no later than 22.
At the Legacy Trail, we passed a referendum to fund that. Was that in 2020 or 2018 that was passed?
The community passed overwhelmingly the Legacy Trail, and that was in 18.
In 2018, yeah, there was a lot of discussion about those trails in 2018. Thank you, Michael. Next, Mickey Ryan will begin the update on the school district enrollment and planning for the future. Mickey Ryan.
Good morning. I'm Mickey Ryan, the Director of Planning for the school district, and I have with me Diane Caminati, our GIS planning analyst, and we're going to both kind of share this presentation. Kind of a little bit of a history, especially for those that are new. The Sarasota School District Planning Department coordinates with all the local government's planning departments. We are part of your development review committees. We review all the residential development that comes in. So we are kept abreast of what's happening in the county. And some of that is done through our school concurrency reviews.
And she's provided a handout to everyone at the table.
We have a planners team made up of school planners and planners around the district that meet, around the county, that meet periodically, and we talk about development trends, future school siting and planning, and joint use opportunities. So we're well connected with all the local governments. So now we're going to give you a little bit of an enrollment update this year. We have to look at the impact of COVID-19 on our enrollment. As you can see, our actual enrollment, these are based on our October 40-day enrollment count numbers, is up there at around 43.3. We budgeted for 44.8, so we had a shortfall of about 1,400 students. A little look at remote learning, so I know everyone might be interested in that. We have a total of around 8,800 students attending remote learning. That includes charter schools. Our actual students, not including charter schools, was 7,500, and we have about 469 students that attend Sarasota Virtual School full-time. Now we're going to look at capacities that we have in some of our areas we've identified in North, Central, and South County that have to do with what we consider high growth areas to watch, large projects. The north area is from University Parkway down to Bee Ridge. The central area would be Bee Ridge down to 681, and then south is below that through the city of Northport. Diane's going to go over the different areas, the projects that we have that we've seen, and some of those projects, you can see them, rooftops coming up now. Some have plats in, some are at various stages of development. So we're looking at anywhere from the next 2 to 3, 5 years out to about 30, 35 on some of the larger projects when we would actually see rooftops. So Diane?
So looking at growth in the North County, these are some of the larger developments coming in between University Parkway and Fruitville Road. Out of all these developments, at build out, we'll see about a student generation of about 2,800 students. The schools that would be affected by this growth are Tatum Ridge Elementary, McIntosh Middle, and Booker High. They have you can see their permanent fish capacity against their 2021 enrollment and the available capacity that is left. Tatum Ridge only leaving 73 seats.
Excuse me, the fish capacity is what the state says how many students are can fit in a school.
Yes.
the actual program capacity is a little different because, you know, the state says a student in a seat every class, but we have planning periods for teachers and things like that, and we don't have somebody fill in their classroom at that time. So program capacity is a little less than what the fish capacity is. They're two different things that we have to look at, but when we go to the state, they go by that fish capacity, which is a student in every seat, every period of the day.
This map shows how we're addressing the future growth. This is the Lakewood Ranch south in Sarasota County. We have an existing elementary school site that's called out in the initial DRI that we negotiated with them. And then we are under contract to close in February for a 60-acre site in the corporate park area. Central County, which is about Bee Ridge south to about 681. These are some of the larger developments at various stages affecting growth in that area. At build out, this should generate about 2,500 students. The schools that are affected by that growth are Ashton Elementary, which is well over capacity, Lakeview Elementary, which is just over capacity, and then Sarasota Middle and Riverview High. Riverview High, we do not have any more space for portables or anything, so that area is going to be, we're going to need to address that. We're addressing growth in that area. We have purchased a site recently, 65 acres for a K-8 site. The site plan you see just adjacent is Sky Ranch. And then we have Grand Lakes, which has just started building out. Just below that will be Strazera. In South County, these are the large developments affecting growth in South County, which at build out will generate about 6,500 students. The schools affected by that growth, Taylor Ranch, Laurel Nokomis, Venice Middle, and Venice High. Taylor Ranch is getting close to filling up. Venice High is already over capacity. We are addressing growth in this area. We are under due diligence on a K-8 site to swap with the current K-8 site that we do own in Whalen Park, and to purchase a high school site adjacent to the K-8. Then in Northport, we have the platted lots. There are about 42,000 vacant residential platted lots in Northport. These could potentially generate about 9,500 students. They just have to pull a permit and they can build a house at any time, so it's harder for us to monitor. The schools in the Northport area, these are just some of them, but we do have available capacity at our schools in Northport. And then we do have some sites that we already own in the area to address growth. We have 2 elementary school sites, we have a middle school site and a high school site. And back to Mickey.
Okay.
Are there any questions?
I'd just like to say some of the larger projects like Whalen Park, Winchester Ranch, and High Hat Ranch, we sit down at the table with the developer as they're going through the review process, and we identify the need in that area, and on usually as it goes through the approval process, we reserve or call out what school sites we need. We still have to purchase those in the future. High Hat Ranch, we have identified a K-8 site and a high school site out there. And in Winchester Ranch, which is just at the 50,000 foot level of development, we've identified a K-8 site in there. So those are at various stages of approval. So we're working on that. We do work with the larger projects way ahead of time. Yearly, we do an evaluation, just so you know a little bit about our capital improvement planning. We monitor high growth areas, and this year we had to add, of course, the effect of COVID-19 on our actual students in the buildings. We get DOE enrollment projections each year on what our actual numbers is for our funding. And we look at our available capacity every fall after our 40-day counts. And then we identify what's going to happen in our next 5-year CIP plan, projects that we think where we may need capacity. And we start putting them within that 5-year time period so we can plan for those facilities and for the timing and for the funding of those. In our current adopted capital budget in this year, we have funding for a K-8 school on the site you saw next to Sky Ranch off of Lorraine Road, south of Clark. That would be funded with borrowing, which must be spent within 3 years. Currently, with the effect of COVID on our enrollment, we're kind of in a holding pattern on that to monitor enrollments this fall and what growth may look like before we move forward on that facility. And as Diane mentioned, we have the Lakewood Ranch site, which finished due diligence. A few little things regarding the title are being worked out, and then we will anticipate closing on that site next month. Welland Park, we have an existing K-8 site there that, as we looked at future growth planning and working with the developer, we realized that we do need a high school site there. So it just made some sense to save some money and jointly put a K-8 and a high school campus right next to each other. So we are going to we're working a deal right now. We're in due diligence on that project, looking at those sites. And then we'll be relooking at like a 5 to 10 year plan for new schools. So that's kind of what we do. One little piece of what we do in our planning department, but just to assure you, we are well connected with all of the local governments, the planning departments. We work with the developers. So we've got our finger on the pulse. Are there any questions?
Mr. Lavalley?
I see a very challenging countywide growth plan challenges. But I'm curious if you've had discussions about Venice High School, since by the numbers, there's already an oversubscription. There's been any discussions about strategies to deal with that challenge for the future?
Currently, we have some portables there. And as the growth continues there, as we are required to do per DOE, we have to bring portables in to house students, as we move forward. Before we just can't build a school, and say they'll come. We have to have the kids ready to go in the school to build. So we usually address those needs with portables, and looking at each fall, we do a reevaluation of the campuses that are tight on space and kind of do a space study to help the principals work out some of their space needs.
Thank you.
So what she is saying is the state requires us to have the students already enrolled that we're going to put in the school. So we basically have to be overcrowded before we can build a new school. We can't build a school based on projections. We have to actually have the students there. And then, sometimes charter schools come in and or leave, and that kind of throws a monkey wrench into what our planning is.
Mm-hmm.
But the state requires us to show that we have the students before we build.
Okay, well, I think by your numbers, we're already oversubscribed in Venice by over 200 students. So I'm wondering if you've been faced with that already.
I didn't hear that. Did you, Mickey? Could you?
Yes, he was saying since we show a negative capacity of a little over 200 students, he's wondering how we're, that we're faced with that already. But typically a high school is built for 2,200 to 2,400 students. So we have to, with the high growth that's happening in Welland Ranch or Welland Park and Winchester Ranch in the future, There's a lot of development going on down there around the Brave Stadium. So we'll be looking at that in our current CIP planning that we just started as kind of where we put that high school and maybe in Welland Park in the next 5 years, starting to plan for that, to meet that need in that area.
If I may, that's a fantastic question, by the way, because there is quite a bit of growth there, and it does take 2 to 3 years to build a high school. And so I know we are actively talking about this right now. So we'll be coming up with plans here very, very soon within our 5 to 10 year plan. But I do hear what you're saying, and we are having those conversations, and you're right. And especially since it does take 2 to 3 years to build a school, we're going to need to figure out exactly what we're going to do. But like Ms. Brown said, yes, you know, the DOE gets involved in that, and they really check to make sure that we have the students before we build the schools. So we need to take that into consideration as well. But we'll be talking about that. That's on our front burner right now. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Asplin. Another thing that was potentially out there was adding a second story to some of the 5 new buildings. But I think we've decided to go with a new school down there to better accommodate the students that we do expect, because we know what we've got and we know what we've got coming.
We
Any
may
other
have a question
questions?
from Mitzi Fielder. Mitzi, can you hear us?
I can, but I do not have a question. Thank you.
Okay, that was all the questions we had on that part. Are you waving? Oh, she's wiping the mic. Oh. Okay, next, we're really right on schedule. Next, we are going to hear from Chuck Henry with the Sarasota County Health Department, giving us a COVID-19 update.
Real quick, Ms. Brown, we are having a request from online. If you are talking at the table, if you can identify yourself for the online participants, please.
Well, good morning, everyone, and thank you for the opportunity to come and provide a brief update on what's happening with COVID-19 across our community. I did do a pretty extensive update to our county commission earlier this week, and a video of that presentation has been posted to the county's webpage. And I think they've also broken that down into question areas. So if you haven't looked there, that's a great place to go for in-depth questions. I'll start real quick with where we're at today in our community with overall virus. And these are draft numbers from this morning. We're still working through to verify those. They usually post the finals in the afternoon, but they'll be pretty close. We had about just under 5,000 results reported to us in the last 24 hours, which is a high number. We typically go between 2,000, 2,500, sometimes less, sometimes more. Of that, there were 348 positive tests for a one-day positivity rate of 7.19. So that's a large number of positives, but because of the large number of tests reported, positivity rate is actually a little less than our 14-day average. Our 14-day average for positivity is 7.7. And so just to give you a context, that's up from maybe our low in early September of just about 4%. So we certainly have seen an increase, and that increase really has occurred over the holiday season between Thanksgiving, Christmas, and New Year's. We're hoping that things are beginning to level out post-holiday, probably related to travel and gatherings, and that numbers will begin to come back down, but we haven't seen that yet, so we need to continue to watch that. In terms of our 14-day average for new cases daily, that number stands about 240. So that's the number of new cases in Sarasota County we get on a daily basis. That number's up from about 35 in September, just to give you context again. And again, as you'll hear if you watch my presentation to the board, Overall, Sarasota County's numbers look better than the state and better than many of our neighbors, but that doesn't mean we don't need to be concerned, because obviously we're seeing virus increase. And so it's something we all need to pay attention to. And we continue to encourage people to wear masks when they can't social distance, to social distance whenever possible. And of course, stay home if you're sick. And I do remind people to wash your hands frequently and vigorously and increase sanitation. In terms of testing, the health department continues to support testing around our community. We have 2 large state-supported sites. Right now, those are both in North Sarasota. Those are staffed and run by the state. So my engagement with those is really just processing the results and reaching out to our citizens. One of those is at the Robert L. Taylor Center in Newtown, and that's a walk-up site where you can park and then walk up. The other is at the Greyhound track facility off of University. It was out closer to the interstate, but as the state lease expired there, they moved to a new location. Both of those sites provide testing to our citizens free, and those are rapid tests. So it's an antigen-based rapid test, and you typically will get results within a half hour of leaving the facility. At both of those sites, you can also request a PCR test, which is a DNA-based test that they send off to a lab. You can have them both done, but you won't get the PCR unless you request it. Moving on to the vaccine side, my first reminder always when I speak about vaccines is we're very, very early in the process of distribution of vaccines. And our biggest challenge right now is statewide is getting enough vaccines out so that we can support vaccine operations in every county. I do want to acknowledge that many of you in this room, as well as other partners around the community, have been fabulous about coming forth and offering up space that we can do vaccine events, offering up support staff for that, coming up with innovative ideas. Our partners at Sarasota Memorial took extra vaccine they had and partnered with the community to do a weekend vaccine clinic and another one in Newtown. I've been contacted by all of our area hospitals about opportunities to do things in the community. All they need is vaccine. And so that's really kind of our sticking point right now. The state is working, I believe, as hard as they can, as well as the federal government, to push vaccine out. To give you an idea, I don't know what the allocations are this week, but last week, the state was allocated about 254,000 doses for the whole state that had to be divided amongst hospitals and our long-term care facilities and county health departments. Right now, all of us are focused on the group 1A target for vaccines, and that is residents and staff at our long-term care facilities, those over 65. And frontline healthcare workers, sorry. and so those are really where all the vaccines we have right now are being focused through various clinics. At the health department, I've received about 5,900 doses so far. I don't have my formal allocation for next week yet, but I'm anticipating getting that today so that we can plan our events for next week. That sounds kind of short to find out today to plan big events for next week, but that's just the nature of the distribution process right now. Typically, the state finds out from the federal level how many vaccines are coming to the state early in the week. They figure out their allocations, send that back to the federal government, and then we get the notice at the end of the week about what's actually coming to the local level. Vaccines are being distributed to health departments, to hospitals, to Walgreens and CVS, who are providing vaccines in our elder care facilities through a federal contract. They go to some state incident management teams that are also helping with those processes so that we can move through that priority group quickly. And some of our FQHCs are beginning to receive vaccines, although to my knowledge, the FQHCs that operate in Sarasota County have not received vaccines yet. That's a pretty small universe. The intent, as more vaccine is available, is for it to be distributed more broadly to providers that have signed up to provide vaccines to their patients, to other drugstores, And right now, the state is working on a pilot with Publix. None of them in our exact area, but it started out with 30 stores last week. I think it's moving up to about 107 stores this week, and I expect to see that continue to expand. Focus right now on rural areas where vaccines may not be as available because the numbers of people aren't there. And so Publix is a great outlet for that. But I think eventually we'll see vaccines move not only throughout the state with Publix, but other drugstores and outlets as well, which will really be helpful in taking pressure off single events. Talking about the vaccine registration process, which has been the biggest area that all of you I know have, any of you at the municipal or county level are getting concerns from citizens about. The real issue is too much demand for too few appointment slots. When we receive 5,000 vaccines, and in Sarasota County, we have 150,000 full-time residents over the age of 65, plus our healthcare workers. There's a tremendous pressure every time we release 1,000 or 2,000 appointment slots, depending on how much vaccine we get. Tremendous pressure for those tickets or for those slots for appointments. They typically disappear within minutes. And then for the next 2 hours, everybody's furiously writing their elected officials, complaining that they couldn't get in and they were there on time. And I understand the frustration. And so we're working very, very closely with a number of different solutions. One of those has been working with Sarasota County to possibly develop our own system. In the interim, the state has piloted a few systems and announced this week that they have one they want to push out to all of their state-run sites. We're looking for some clarity on that so we understand the functionality before we jump from one system to another. But I just want to assure you that we're well aware of those concerns. And even if we have to use our current system, which is the Eventbrite, one or two more times, we are rapidly trying to move to a better platform for our community. And maybe it's not true for all communities, but for our community, the message we're hearing is our residents are more than willing to be patient, but they'd like to be able to sign up on a roster, have a number. They don't even care if they're 20,000 is their number. They just want to know that they're signed up and that someone will call them when we have the vaccine available. And so we're trying to make sure we have that functionality for our community and that we'll get that in place. I think that covers the big things I really wanted to talk about. We continue to provide a lot of support to the school, and I appreciate the invitation to be here today. Not only do we have a partnership for school health, but we've been partnering on testing sites to make them available to students and family, and work with the school very closely in trying to keep students in school. I think that's been pretty successful. We have, I looked today on the dashboard, looks like about 140 students and teachers actually out with illness, and about 1,000 students out on quarantine. And so given the size of the district, that is an increase from where we were before the holidays, but I think it's hopefully going to begin to level out as well and come back down. And overall, we've been pretty successful across our school programs. I'll stop there and answer any questions you have, or until you tell me you've heard enough, and then I'll be on my way.
Well, I know our school employees are on us, but at least if we can work out something to get those school employees who are over 65, who are quite concerned about, they can't get on the phone and try to get those appointments, because they're working. And I know the amounts of vaccines will be ramping up that we will get. And I know you'll continue to work with us to ensure that at least we start with those over 65 and then get the rest of our staff vaccinated, because when they're out, the students can't come, then parents can't work. That I know that, and we're frustrated too. Is there any questions or comments?
We do have one for Jen Ahern Coke.
Jen Ahern from Coke from the city. Hi, Jen.
Yes. Hi, Jenny Hernkach, City Commission, City of Sarasota. Thank you so much, Mr. Henry, for your presentation and for your information. I really appreciate it. I have to say, just anecdotally, I test pretty often at Robert L. Taylor, and it is like the easiest thing in the world. It's so smoothly run and it's so efficient. So kudos to you and whoever is at the state is administering all of that. So I wanted to say thank you for that. And I recommend it to anyone who hasn't been able to test. It's really easy and painless and free. My question has to do a little bit, sorry, along the lines of what Ms. Brown was talking about. And I think that teachers and the school administrators getting the vaccine is a really important key to all of this, since the connection is we're all supposed to be getting back to work, but the parents can't get back to work unless they can put their kids in school, and the schools can't function if there are no teachers and administrators. So I understand the 1A grouping of long-term frontline and people over 65, but I would hope that teachers and administrators would be included in that frontline workers group. And so I wanted to get your comments on that. And also I've had some emails from veterans wanting to know if there is a specific route that veterans go to get tested. And then lastly, if I could just ask you to please remember to reach out to the local city and municipal administrators. For example, I know in the city of Sarasota, we have the Multicultural Health Institute in North Sarasota, and they have a list of people who are over 65 with, pre-existing conditions that should probably be top of the list as well. And we don't need to do any Eventbrite or any of that sort of situation. We have that list right there. So if I could just respectfully ask you to make sure to reach out to our interim city manager, Mr. Brown, if the next time you need a group of people to be vaccinated. So thank you very much. And I appreciate you being here to update us.
Thank you for those questions, and I'll try to catch all of them quickly. The priority levels are based on the governor's executive order, and so that really determines in Florida how we roll out the vaccines. And as more vaccines become available, I'm sure that executive order will expand to include the next level down. I anticipate that next level to include our critical infrastructure workers, which would be teachers and law enforcement, probably critical municipal and county workers, such as our transportation drivers and things that are out being exposed, possibly even our grocery store food service workers. So those are just my guesses. We'll wait and see what the directive is, but understand that we have a lot of people to work through in this top group with vaccine until there's enough available to move to the next tiers. So we continue to ask people to be patient, continue to do those things they've done this last 11 months to stay healthy, and know that we'll get vaccine to them as soon as we can. In terms of veterans, I did hear last night through the news media that the Veterans Clinic on Bee Ridge here in Sarasota was now offering vaccines through the VA by appointment. I heard that their appointments were full through the end of January, but they were going to start this week making some appointments in February. So that was good news. So there is an alternative for veterans that are over 65 to begin getting their vaccines there. And that may be a faster route than getting in the general pool. And then in terms of reaching out to the governments, many of you participate yourselves or your staffs participate in a weekly call that our Emergency Operations Center runs with our constitutionals and city officials. And I'm always on that call, or a member of my staff is on that call to share data and answer questions. So there's a weekly touch point there. That's simply because our Emergency Operations Center, because this is a public health emergency, has been stood up for the last 11 months supporting my operations. And so they continue those processes. In addition to that, reaching out to Multicultural Health Institute. I work with Dr. Merritt all the time. In the last weekend, participated in panels that were sponsored by the NAACP and the Sarasota Manatee Black Chamber of Commerce. So we are very concerned about getting vaccines to our populations of color because we know that they're more adversely affected by this disease. And we're doing our best to make sure that they have access to whatever vaccine systems are there. Again, we're early in that process. So I expect more opportunities to come as more vaccine moves into our community. I think I covered all your questions there, but.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Other questions? Great. Well, thank you very much for the opportunity to be here.
Thank you, Dr. Henry. Next, we have Deborah Jackalone to give us a youth mental health update.
Good morning. Thank you all for letting me be here to speak with you this morning and to share the Sarasota Comprehensive Schools Mental Health Plan. I like to tell people that I have the very best position in our district. I am the Director of Student Services. So what that means is I get to work with all of our students and their families, and I get to work with our team of experts that are supporting the social, emotional, mental, and behavioral health needs of all of our students. And those experts include our school psychologists, our school social workers, and our school counselors. So I want to take a couple minutes to share some statistics with you all. Some of you may be very familiar with these statistics, and others, this may be your first time seeing them. But what we know about mental health is over half of our children that have mental health needs did not receive the services that were required in the previous year. 60% of our students who died by suicide had an underlying mental health condition. And 37% of students with mental health needs drop out of school. That's the highest of any other disability. Those were our national statistics. Here's some things in Sarasota that are really close to home. We have 84,000 youth between the ages of birth and 24. Of those 84,000, we have 12% that have untreated mental health needs. That equates to over 10,000 students in our community who need help and aren't getting it. There's also an economic impact of untreated mental health illnesses. In 2018, we did an environmental scan of Sarasota County, and we found that there is an $86 million annual impact of untreated mental health illnesses for our adults and our children within our communities. So many of you probably remember a day, 2018, February 14th, Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School. One of the most tragic, horrific events that our nation has ever seen. A lot of times when tragedy strikes us, we get change and good outcomes. In this case, we received a tremendous outcome from our state legislators. For the very first time ever, the state allocated funding that was directly to be used to support mental health in schools. This past year, Sarasota County received about $1.3 million to support mental health needs of our students in our schools. We are so proud to report that 95% of the dollars that we received have been allocated to provide those direct services for our students. We have tremendous partnerships with our partners at First Step and the Florida Center, who are providing those comprehensive mental health services to our students in our schools every day. Our mental health plan has some really great elements. You could read the thorough plan on our district website, but I wanted to share a few highlights that we're really proud of because this directly impacts our students every day. We are so proud that every elementary school and middle school has a dedicated mental health therapist on our campuses. Every single one of our high schools has a student assistant program specialist to meet their needs. We've engaged in a partnership with Suite 360 to provide comprehensive mental health education for every single student in grades 6 through 12. We have Inner Explorer, which is a mindful social emotional app that is available free of charge on a computer and on an app for every student, for every family, and for every community member of Sarasota County. We also have something called the crisis text line. And by texting the keyword "here for you" to 741-741, our students, our staff, our community can reach a licensed counselor and receive crisis intervention and support 365 days a year, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. In Sarasota County, we don't isolate mental health. We provide mental health education as part of our comprehensive integration of academic and educational supports. And a couple highlights, we implement a positive behavior intervention system where we work really hard to build a climate that is positive for our students so that their learning can be accelerated. We work really hard with some of our community partners to implement the Handle with Care notices. Any student that was involved in a crisis situation the night before, our district gets notification of that student, and the next day at school, we can provide additional supports and services as necessary. We have a character education program called the Civility Squad, and that Civility Squad helps us focus specifically on building character education and forming positive relationships with our students and our families. You guys might hear a mission statement in Sarasota County. We often say every student, every day, whatever it takes. And I'm not going to spend time reading these resources, but these are the many different ways that our staff is equipped to meet the needs of every student, every day, whatever it takes. So one thing our mental health allocation plan has allowed us to do is to provide a continuum of supports and services that we've never had before. We're able to increase our capacity and build an infrastructure that we know works, and this continuum is allowing us to improve our attendance. It's allowing us to increase our positive relationships. We are working really hard on improving our graduation rates and ultimately having every single student in Sarasota graduate college or career ready. So where does this leave us? In closing, I just want to say that our team, the school psychologists, counselors, social workers, truancy officers, homeschool liaisons, has a recommitted focus to finding those 10,000 students that I mentioned earlier and making sure that we provide them with the supports and services that they need to thrive and be successful. That's our passion, that's our reason, and that is our commitment to each one of you as I have the opportunity to stand before you today to ensure you that we are meeting their needs, and we will continue our best to partner with you all so we can do what's best for every student every day. Thank you. I don't know if anyone has any questions or if you need any additional information, but I'm happy to do my best to provide any updates if I need to.
No questions. Thank you very much.
Madam Chair, sorry, I put my request
Go
in the
ahead.
chat room. This is Commissioner Mike Moran, hoping I could speak for just a second.
Mike Moran, go ahead.
Thank you. I don't know if it's possible to put that slide back of the SEL and all the different folks that are involved in this, but it's a perfect example where the Sarasota County Commission has put a lot of time and energy into this. We're going to be spending much more of it in March and April. As a matter of fact, it was part of our board priority at our retreat. And this is a really good example, visual, of how incredibly important it is, not just the money that's involved with this, of the coordination of care. I know there's a couple of people highlighted, a couple third parties highlighted related to this, but I've requested that Teen Court be on this call because they are literally physically in the schools, actually dealing with these teenagers one-on-one. But more importantly to me, my personal opinion, more importantly to me is they're giving free one-on-one counseling with all of the family members, not just specifically the teens. Personal opinion of mine, all roads lead back to some of these parents needing guidance on how to deal with youth that are making some bad decisions. But again, it's a personal initiative of mine. But more importantly is, and my long-winded point to this is that when the county commission comes about for this discussion, it's obviously going to be about money, but it's also more importantly going to be about coordinating all of these resources to make sure they're not overlapping. And unfortunately, just there's some real clear examples that I've brought about in the past and I'll bring about in the future of overlap of coverage on some of these. So I appreciate this very much. I think everybody's acting in complete good faith on this. It should be an obvious concern for everyone, but efficiency and coordination of care is just going to be a huge focus for our county commission again, besides the money, of course. But thank you for the extra time.
Yes, thank you. And Heather Todd and her team are tremendous partners to us in Sarasota County Schools. She's worked diligently in this time of COVID to beef up the supports that Teen Court can provide for our students and families. And we are extremely grateful for their services and support. So thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Next on the list, we have Jonathan Lewis with the county for a surtax update.
Pulling that up, I'm not Steve Botello. Steve, if you don't know, is the Deputy County Administrator. He's also our Chief Financial Management Officer. But I had something else I had to pull him off on today. He is our point person for the county related to surtax. But he and I have been making this presentation jointly over the past, I don't know, 12 months or so. So as soon as they get those slides up, all right, very good. So I'm sure everybody in this room knows what our surtax is and why it's important. But I think it would be remiss if we didn't use this as an opportunity to highlight it for everybody in the community and for you all as we go over the next couple years. Sometimes the state comes up with programs just like we all do, and we give it a really technical name, which doesn't really mean anything to anybody else except us, right? So the state calls it the infrastructure surtax. It really maybe ought to be a community investment tool because that's really what it is. We've come up with a tagline for this year, common sense, your penny at work, because that's really what it is. And as Steve and I have gone over the past year making presentations on this, we'll be doing more as we go along. We really are emphasizing that it is that penny that comes in that makes a difference in our community as it relates to our infrastructure. You go to counties throughout the state that do not have the infrastructure surtax, and you can immediately see the difference in the quality of their community and how it's been invested in. So for those of you who don't know, here in Sarasota County, our voters over a very, very long period of time has prioritized this infrastructure surtax. You paid on the first $5,000 of a taxable item. Maybe you get to do that more often than I do. I really only get to do that when I'm buying a new car where I've exceeded the $5,000, but it happens periodically, but it is only on that first $5,000 and it is very restricted funded by state law. It can only be used for capital improvement projects, for infrastructure. And we'll talk about what that means and some examples in a minute. Bottom line, think your fire trucks, your police vehicles, your school buildings, water, wastewater, roads, those types of things. So, and that shows up a little different on my version of the presentation than this one. But what should be there in the 6% is a bifurcated of the 1%. It's the 7% we pay on when we buy something. 6% goes to the state. We get a tiny portion of that back and half-cent sales tax and state revenue sharing. We all get that. But the 1%, after they take their administrative fees, we all get back to us, both at the school district, the municipalities, and the counties, to invest in infrastructure in our community. We've got a long history here in Sarasota County, and there's an important footnote as we go through this. At least it's important to me. I happen to think this is the most important source of revenue we have here locally, at least at the county level and the city level, because it is the only one that our citizens have prioritized and voted for over and over again. They give it to us. Without their prioritizing of it, it would not exist. So it actually started back in '89. It was a 10-year the first 2 times. Last time it came up in 2007, it was a 15-year renewal. We will be talking to the board when that referendum goes forward and proposing we continue on very much like the last one, so another 15-year renewal. But there's important to note that in that time period between the first and second one, it actually went up for a vote and people didn't spend a lot of time talking about how important it was and what had been accomplished. And it actually didn't pass on the first renewal. It came back immediately because everybody said, whoa, wait, this is important. The business community got very involved and other groups got very involved, and then it immediately passed again. But that's why we're spending so much time so far in advance talking about it, because we don't want to make that mistake of not making sure people understand what this money does and where it comes from. So we do plan in November of 22 to have that go back in front of our citizens for a vote before the surtax expires in December of 24. And obviously the lag between 22 and 24 is due to the timing of elections, but also some of the things that need to be done for some of us in terms of getting authorization on how we can advance spend that money to reinvest in the community in terms of infrastructure. So let's talk about the current phase, phase 3. What has it meant to this community? Our current projection is it's been about $1.2 billion that we all have received and been entrusted with to reinvest into the community, whether it's been a whole variety of projects. That's the current projection. A group right now is doing the projection on what it would be for 4. That means a lot, particularly when you look at what the split looks like. So we use the state basis for the allocation here in Sarasota County. They have a default, unless all the participants agree to a different formula, you use the state formula. I think just about everybody uses the state formula. You could imagine why that is. 25% off the top goes to the school district to reinvest in our schools and educating our children. And then the 75% is split between the municipalities and the county based on an allocation formula of population. And that changes every year based on the projections from the state through the University of Florida based on population. So we just wanted to highlight a couple of projects. Certainly you see Gulf Gate Library up there. Probably most of you know all these projects, but since they all come from a different component of the community, I'm just going to mention. Yeah, Booker, and I'm going from left to right on the top. Booker. On the right side, you have Bayfront Park and the pickleball courts. Back down to the bottom left, you have the Venice Pier. You have our Robert L. Taylor in the middle. And on the far right side, you have a joint fire station, police annex down in the city of Northport. These are just some small examples of hundreds of projects that have happened in our community over the past several decades. So want to highlight a little bit on where we're at with the planning for this. We did start probably earlier than some people thought was necessary, but we think for some very important reasons. There's a lot of work that has to be done. So back in May of 2020, we held a kickoff meeting, and this has been with both either your administrator or whoever they have designated from their finance team, reoccurring administration finance, and your PIOs, your communication teams. So from the school board, all the cities in the county, they've been meeting on these things. But we also started off with our business community doing some kickoff, not asking them for anything yet, a presentation very, very much like this, showing them where we're headed. I don't think any of them they all had great questions when we did it, but all of them got the importance of it and why we were starting so early. Many of them said, well, what can we do? And then obviously the business community will figure that out and how they get involved on their own. Here are some of the ones we've hit. We have tried to hit it pretty dispersely throughout the county. I can't say we've hit every single chamber of commerce, but we tried to get most of them. You can see Argus, BIA, Gulf Coast Business Exchange, Visit Sarasota, and others on there as well as the chambers. And again, we have very similar presentation where their boards had the opportunity to ask us questions. Of course, when we originally started planning this, we were planning on having them live in person. And so I think all of them except one was done remotely via Zoom or Teams or whatever the case may be. You also see that throughout the community, and your organizations have been doing this as well. Every morning I drop my daughter off at Sarasota High School and I get to see the sign right as I turn in going to Sarasota High School, where we've put up signs reminding people how the surtax has been used to invest in their community. And each of your organizations have adopted this signage and are putting it up throughout their community, both at the cities, the county, and the school district. And it's just to highlight the reminder where it came from, get that tagline out there, just to start reminding people as we head towards 22. We've also created a portal online to talk about this in greater details. We think one of the things that could be very harmful as we go forward, if people don't have access to the information on this that they think they need. So we've really tried to create a portal that has everything that they could possibly desire to access. We usually do this in a live website format, but we're doing it today just as screenshots. So it is I think all of the organizations adopted a very similar model to ours, if not the exact same, but all their information is out there. We have it from everybody, and it talks about what the surtax is, but then it gets into, how it gets invested, transportation, libraries, schools, those types of things. What the projects were, so some highlighted projects from each area with descriptions of what those projects were and the costs associated with it. And then this was great to be able to get from each of the organizations where they provided the data on how the money was spent over the past, heading towards 15 years now, what the projects were, how it related back to the original referendum and the language that was identified on what projects were going to be done. And then we go a step further. We have a very talented data analyst on our team who uses a visualization software, where it doesn't show up great in the colors here, but you can see this is unincorporated county surtax program, how the money was spent. And then you can see both planned and unplanned and what those breakouts were. Then it also gets into, you can do that same thing by each of the cities and the school district, because your finance staff provided that information to be uploaded into the system. Also does a comparison back to the original projects. How many of the projects were done were on that original list and how many were added, it shows that. And then you can go further in and you can really break down on individual projects how the money was spent and how much is remaining. So it's the data out there accessible to people on the projects that 15 years ago, or 13 years ago, everybody said, these are the projects we're gonna do. They can now go back and see, as of to date, where those projects stand, how much money was spent, very, very specifically. All right, so what's gonna happen between now and 22? Each of the organizations has a responsibility here. Sarasota County, I believe our board has indicated support of our recommendation, which is to use a very similar system as last time. They're going to hopefully appoint a task force for unincorporated county project, for the county projects. And that task force will hold community meetings to get that feedback from the community and build our project list. I think all the organizations back then did something very similar, and hopefully your teams are working on that, because by March of 22, we really need that final project list. So the public, because at some point as public entities, what we can do is educate, we can't advocate. And so we'll be educating about what those options are and what are on the project list, so the community as a whole can make that decision on whether it's important or not. And we need to be able to do that. And the importance of the project list, if you look across the state, again, where places where that surtax has failed, they haven't been clear to the public about where the money would go and how it would be invested as they went forward. We think there's 3 keys to how this moves forward to a vote, regardless of how the public ends up deciding on it. These projects, if you look across the state, these surtaxes do not pass unless the business community has said, yes, we think this is a valuable way to invest money here in Sarasota County. So we have spent a lot of money on the front end, or a lot of time, I should say, on the front end, talking to our business community, making sure they know where we're going. We don't want anything to be secret, all to be transparent. But just as important will be the engagement with our community as a whole and getting their input on projects and so that they can see the importance of it at an individual level as well. And that ties in hand for both of them, both the public and the individual community aspect with public education, which is the role by law that we can play. I do think this is the most important source of revenue we have because of how we get it. It's not the biggest source of revenue, but it is the most important to me because of how we get it. All your organizations have been great to deal with over the past 2 years as we've been going through this process, but it will need all of you as elected officials and your appointed staff and their teams to focus on this as we go forward to make sure that when this comes to the community in 2022, November 2022, they have the information they need to make an educated decision on this topic. And this completely ties in with how you build schools and how you build parks associated with schools and facility planning, because we won't be able to do it without the surtax. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much. I think we'll probably want to put you on our agenda closer to, when people start voting so they can understand what it is we're looking at. That information is so important to get out to the public. Jill. Luke.
Mr. Lewis, the website that you were showing, is that something that's produced from the county for all county residents to be able to get on that site?
It is, and then each of the municipalities, we gave them our platform, said if you want to use it, great. And I think everybody, if I recall correctly, everybody chose to just build off our platform. So it is out there, it's live now. That URL that went up on the screen, it's out there, it's live for everybody to see. And the closer we get to final numbers on each year, we'll keep updating it between now and 22.
Yeah, I didn't see Northport listed on it, so I'll take my questions back to Northport then. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. So let me just make sure that I didn't skip it too quickly. Actually, I think Northport may have been the first city to actually give us their data.
Okay, it's in a different color. That's
Yes,
why I
ma'am.
didn't see
Yes,
it then.
ma'am.
Thank you.
They were early adopters.
Yay.
Well, good. Thank you. I'd like to again thank all of our presenters today. We're right on schedule. Next, we have time to call on each local government to give an update, about 5 minutes. The first one I have on my list is Tom Harmer with the town manager of Longboat Key. Is he online or is somebody from Longboat Key?
Yes, this is Tom. I'm online.
Well, welcome.
Welcome. Thank you. I'll jump right in. You probably started with Longboat Key because we're probably the easiest one. We obviously have no schools on the island within the jurisdiction of the town. But as you're aware, the town and our residents have been very supportive of school board initiatives. Thank you for facilitating these meetings and this discussion. Obviously, I think everyone knows Longboat Key is a barrier island. It's generally built out. So from a growth standpoint, we have minimal activity related to growth, mostly redevelopment. We have about 7,000 permanent residents. That does spike to over 20,000 during the season. We're in early season now. We are unique. We're one of 4 cities in the state of Florida that are split between 2 counties, which creates a number of opportunities for us. We've experienced that even with COVID and emergencies, and that can be a challenge for us. Speaking of COVID, obviously we're an older community. Our average age is over 71 years. We have a relatively small number of students in the public school system. We reached out a few weeks ago to both Sarasota County and Manatee County as our annual update to identify how many public students we have. This year, there's 32 public school students in the Sarasota County system. I think that includes charter schools as well as the public school, the traditional public school. In Manatee County, we have 38 students. So out of our 7,000 permanent residents and 22,000 seasonal, we have about 70 total students in the system. According to our Sarasota County property appraiser, this past year, very unique for us, our tax base actually decreased last year in the Sarasota County portion of the island. That was primarily due, we were told by the appraiser, due to condo values. That started some strategic discussion on the island. We hired a real estate consultant to come in and evaluate our tax base. You know, his assessment, we had a public presentation to the commission and a discussion about it, but his overall assessment was he felt like it was a one-time cause, tied somewhat to traffic issues over the past year or two, but also age of buildings on the island and maybe some limited new product. We do have a couple of active redevelopment projects that are in the works. The former Colony property, everyone has typically been familiar with that. It was tied up in litigation and other issues for probably 8 to 10 years. Our commission had approved a couple years ago now an entitlement for the redevelopment of that for a little over 70 private condos, very high scale, expensive units, and a 160 some unit St. Regis. It appears that all the legal issues have finally been resolved and the developer is in the process of taking final control of the entire property. And, you know, I think the market will determine when the actual start is, but he's indicating to us some optimism about, you know, sometime later this year. The Sun and Sea is a resort on the island, and they just submitted plans to redevelop from a resort into high-end condominiums. I think their starting price is over $4 million a unit. In addition to the real estate value issue that we were a little bit concerned about on the island, we also did invite insurance professionals to come in and publicly talk with the commission about what's happening in the market for coastal communities in our region. Very interesting discussion about market and rates and age of properties and storm protection and FEMA, et cetera. So that's available in video, but it was a very interesting discussion. I want to thank Jonathan and the county for bringing up the sales tax effort. That's very important to Longboat Key. You know, our commission has been very strategic and supportive about capital initiatives on the island. I'll just mention a couple that are underway because they're big for us. We're undergrounding everything on the island. That's about $49 million. Our public approved that in 2 different referendums and 3.5-year project. We're about 1.5 years in, getting ready to convert our first phase here in the next month or so to fully underground. And then we're kicking off here in the next couple months our major beach renourishment. It's about a 5 to 8 year cycle for us. So we just opened up our bids this week, and involves about 800,000 cubic yards of sand and the installation of 5 groins on the north end. We're building a brand new station under construction, supposed to be done summer, early fall, and renovating a second station. And we're working on some improvements to our town center and outdoor venue that'll have an area for a stage and other amenities. So that's my kind of quick overview update. Again, thank you. I know our mayor is on the call here, so Mayor Steyer may have something he may want to add.
Yeah, just a quick note, you know, as Tom mentioned, we don't have many students in Longboat Key as a percentage of our population, but it's so great to have a school district that we can be proud of and that enhances the property values for everyone, even out on the Key with our older population. We appreciate that running that district, especially during this COVID crisis, has got to be one of the most difficult jobs now in government or in any, in any enterprise. And coming in the middle of all that, as Brendan Asplund did last year, has got to be even more difficult. And in the interactions we've had with him, I think the county and the school district has been extremely fortunate to be able to bring him in. He's very impressive. He's obviously doing a great job and in tough times. So we hope to see him out. I understand he may come out and visit our commission during a meeting sometime soon and speak to us. We look forward to that. So thanks very much for all you guys do.
Well, you're welcome, and thank you for the kind words. Next on tap, we have Jason Yarborough with the City of Northport.
Thank you, Chair, for allowing me to speak today. Growth, growth, growth. That's kind of the mantra we have down in the City of Northport. We've experienced over the last year, 7,000 population increase. Our permit activity in the building department is 15%, even in the middle of a pandemic, is 15% above the previous non-pandemic year. So that can only give you an idea of once things start to normalize and vaccination is under full swing and we're kind of getting back to whatever the new normal is, kind of gives you an idea of, with one hand behind our back, we did this. With everything fully functional, it's all, the jets are going to be on full blast. So the city's constantly working and planning to accommodate that growth. We want to say thank you so much to the school board for the partnership. And again, I also want to say thank you for giving an update to the schools in the Welland Park area, which is, by the way, part of Northport. So I just wanted to help clarify that for those who may be a little misguided. The other thing that we want to talk about is the pandemic brought to light the need for the ability to do remote learning. I think 20% of our students in the system are currently remote learning. Northport, while we're a newer city, you would think our high-speed internet would be robust and pervasive throughout the entire city, but that's not the case. So, one of the things we sent in our November letter to y'all was the discussion about mutual partnerships and investment in high-speed internet for students and some of our dead spots. We're very blessed that Frontier has stepped up and has got a robust high fiber rollout plan, but it won't get to everywhere. And students are, for better or for worse, they don't always have that opportunity available to them. So we would like to talk about that. Another thing we want to talk about is talk about a traffic light in Northport High. It is interesting price in its current form with just 2 lanes, and the impact that Northport High has when it lets out a traffic light would greatly help with the safety issue. And the last but not least, we know that the pandemic, the way the timing happened at the very beginning, it had a great impact on how y'all handled graduation. But with almost a year in place, we hope and want to encourage that maybe we have an alternative graduation plan instead of what we did last year. And with that, I'd say thank you so much for the time to speak.
Thank you. We hear you. Marlon Brown with the City of Sarasota.
Real quick, Ms. Brown, we have an online comment. Jen?
Yes, thank you. My question is for Mr. Harmer from Longboat Key. Mr. Harmer, could you let me know how many miles you're undergrounding and or the cost per mile? You don't have to do that now. Another time would be fine.
Thanks, Joe. I was unmuting myself. So I'll provide that information back to the city. We do have that information and can provide that back. Overall, it's $49 million, but we do have a breakdown by mile.
Would appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I know that COVID has been a challenge to all of us over the past year, but if you recall, the school board and City of Sarasota worked cooperatively on the School Avenue closing and also the improvements. We didn't have an opportunity, as requested by both the board and City Commission, to have updates. So would you be able to offer just a quick update right now at this time? I apologize for doing it at this moment. I don't know, Superintendent Aspen.
And ask Jody Dumas, he's our Chief Operations Officer, and have him give us an update as far as over.
Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate the opportunity to update. And actually, there are 3 phases to that agreement that we made with the City of Sarasota. They include the bike path down the west section of Sarasota High, actually down 41. That's one phase of the project. It's actually east side campus improvements along some of the roads in that area, which include sidewalk improvements, sharrows in the roadway. That's kind of phase 2 of a project. And then phase 3 was really an agreement that we would re-fence the entire Sarasota High perimeter with more of a decorative 6-foot fencing around campus for safety and security reasons. So in terms of those 3 pieces of the project, actually there's a project meeting today with the team, and as long as there are no last minute changes, actually the east side improvements with the sidewalks and the sharrows will start probably later this week. So we're about ready to kick that piece of the project off. We've got the right-of-way work permits in place, and so we are ready to go as long as the team agrees on that piece. And so you'll see that happen very, very quickly. And within the next month or two, that'll be complete. That's on the east side. On the west side, really the larger piece of the project, which is creating that pathway, we're also very, very close. I know the team has been working through what the trees along 41 will look like with FDOT and just making sure there's agreement with the team. So I think those are kind of the last minute decisions about what some of those plantings will look like along 41 for that west side of the project. But as long as the team agrees on that, I think we are done basically with design and ready to also kick that project off. So I think it has been a little bit of a delay with COVID, but the team's done a great job of working together also with FDOT. And I think you're going to see a lot happen here in the next few months with both those pieces of the project. The last piece is really working to refence the entire campus. That has been bid and it has been priced, and we are ready to go on that. So because we're in school, that will have to be certainly coordinated closely with the school because we don't want to leave an unsecure perimeter, but that will also kick off in the next few months. And so my hope is within the next couple months, certainly a lot of activity on all three phases of that agreement and then completion very quickly, hopefully throughout the summer sometime. So we have been waiting a while for all that to take place, but I think you're gonna see a lot of action in the next few months.
Thank you, Mr. Dumas. Just a couple of quick notes, Madam Chair. The City of Sarasota is starting another major roundabout improvement at the intersection of Gulfstream and 41. And again, we always work closely with the school board related to the buses and the routes. As you know, we had a major project on Osprey and Mound with the lift station. We ended up closing Osprey Avenue. So we'll work closely with your planning staff to make sure that they're in the coordination and the maintenance of traffic, especially with Gulfstream and 41. That intersection will be closed off, but we will have some bypass lanes. We've been working cooperatively with Longboat Key and some of the Barry Island communities to make sure that they're in the know as to that project. And then similarly to Northport, at the mayor's direction, we are also looking at putting Wi-Fi and working with some of the providers that we have in the community to see if we can launch Wi-Fi in our parks and our low-income areas that don't necessarily have the infrastructure at home to be able to provide access for especially for the kids, so that they have access to the web. Mayor, I don't know if you have anything that you want to add.
You're on.
Just that, yeah, so we can stay in communication with that. That project is still in the very beginning stages, but as we get information, we'll definitely share it because I think it's a great opportunity to Wi-Fi our public parks. With the Legacy Trail extension coming into the city of Sarasota, I think that that's going to be very widely used by our students. And so we are in the process of looking at our neighborhoods and figuring out where the connections need to go and the trailheads need to go essentially. And I think one of the things that we should all be focusing on is which neighborhoods have the highest concentration of young families so that we make sure that we have safe paths to and from school utilizing that great infrastructure program. The School Avenue, I'll just say, my preference, I'm just very glad that we were able to get that done and get Sarasota High secured. That road was cutting this high school in half ever since I was in high school there. And, my hope is that for our city of Sarasota High School, we can really create a great courtyard and a safe environment for the kids moving forward with that space. Lofts on Lemon broke ground just the other day, and it's an affordable housing project that we've teamed up with the Housing Authority and a number of other philanthropic organizations. And one of the kind of relevant portions or parts of that project is that with the help and the contribution of the Barancic Foundation, we were able to take the tax credits that we used to build most of the or the Housing Authority uses to build most of the property and augment that project with teacher-specific affordable housing units. And that was specifically provided for, and that money earmarked for teachers by the Barancic Foundation's a significant contribution to that project. So we were able to augment that project, not only with their help, but with the city of Sarasota's help, and then with the community foundation as well. I just think that is a great design and kind of a model that we may be able to use in other areas of the city. But I just wanted to let the school board know that that we have our teachers in mind, and we're really working to provide housing close to the schools in which they service. That's all I have. I just wanted to end with just a thank you to the school board. As a public school graduate here, I feel we have the best schools in the state and a great school system, and you all are doing a great job.
Thank you very much. And I think we'd like to hear more about that housing project and what the date is, when it's going to be on, and how our teachers can apply. That would be great. We'll continue that conversation.
Absolutely. Hopefully ribbon cutting will all be there.
Thank you. Next, we have Mr. Lewis again from the Sarasota County.
Just three I want to touch on for us that all kind of correlate around schools and school facilities and school planning. Our board is pretty progressive on projects. They really want to get projects done. So a project that had been long overdue, not delayed for any bad reasons. We all just have to prioritize projects, but this past year we finished a long overdue segment on Myrtle, which obviously services a couple of our schools and the crossings and the sidewalks and the drainage there. But the next phase is already under construction and will be done very quickly. Our Public Works Director and our Capital Projects Director maintain their fingerprint on it daily. So in the very near future, the Myrtle project that had long ago been planned and tossed around and who's going to pay for it and who isn't, the County Commission saw the need as it related particularly to people in that area getting to and from school and what that meant, and they funded it and got that project done. And even when we brought back a modification of the project because it came in a little bit more than we had anticipated, our board said, no, we're doing the project the right way, and they put the additional money in the project to have sidewalks on both sides. So that certainly ties back, and we look forward to having that next phase done soon and celebrate it with the schools like we did the last one.
Thank you. That was definitely a safety issue for these kids getting back and forth. And, and I think we'd like to work with you on other streets too when we find them. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. It was also a safety issue driving on it. You hit that railroad crossing, it was a little rough on the tires, I think. So yeah, we're pretty proud of the progress on that one over the past 2 years. Another one, and Mayor, I didn't realize you guys were working on it because our board had already given us a similar direction. So I'll circle back with Mr. Brown on this. Last year, our board had given us direction to look at school crossings generally throughout unincorporated Sarasota County and match it up. We did a pretty deep dive on what that meant. Our Public Works Director and his transportation team produced a report around that. And then recently, our board looked at that report and said, we want to take it one step further and take advantage of throughout the county where Legacy Trail could possibly correlate to people taking advantage of walking or biking to school. Take a look at that. So they've given that as a direction to us, and we're already working on that. So we'd love to compare notes with the city of Sarasota on that. And when we're done, we'll certainly be sharing that with everybody. But there is a direct impact, particularly as it relates to some of the city of Sarasota school and unincorporated schools, like in the Ashton area. So we'll share that, and that is something we're working on as it relates to the schools. The other thing, and we don't get to talk about this one as much as we would like to, all of us have had a long-standing partnership with the school district as it relates to fire training and the resources available there. All of the fire departments utilize it to some extent. Our board has prioritized a regional fire training academy to really take it to the next level. Can't do it without the partnership with the school district, and we've been working with your team, and that's great to create classroom space and training. But we really need to modernize our women and men have the opportunity to train for real fire scenarios, not much of what exists now. And the school district also has some better uses of that property than what are there now. So that is a project we're taking on. We're looking at I think it's a 32-acre site, kind of mid-county off Laurel. And we're working pretty hard on that. And we'll continue to work with the fire departments and of course the school district, because that training you all do for the community. We want to step it up to the next game and become a regional trainer, not just here in Sarasota County. And with that, I'll stop.
Thank you. Yeah, in addition to the fire academy, we also have the law enforcement academy. Wasn't it 26 that graduated yesterday? And then we had another, I think 13 or something that went from corrections into law enforcement. And I know a lot of them already have jobs with some of us around the table. You were talking crosswalks, and there's another crosswalk issue. I think we brought it up last year, and that is at Bay Vista and East Street. If we could have one that, because in line with that closing Sarasota, one of those on-demand ones like we have up on Bay Vista in the Amish neighborhood by Der Dutchman, and they could just push the button and there's a big, because it's a short time period that it gets very busy. But I know also for the circus, when the kids are coming and going and when they have shows too. One other thing about the county, and I don't know if you're prepared to answer it or perhaps Mr. Dumas can, and that is the shelters, hurricane shelters. We saw during Irma, the school stepped up, but we had some shortages in some areas, especially in South County, and we just signed an agreement to expand on that. Do you know where that is, or should I have Jody come up and tell us those schools we're going to do?
So I think we can tag team it because he can give you the most recent on the project end. So the county took the lead on working with the school district to try and get, sometimes people they form a box. Well, I think the emergency management team working with Jody and his team were able to say, well, maybe the box is a little bit different shape than we thought it was, and really take the opportunity to look at the school down south off River Road and take a fresh look at it and say, are there opportunities to take portions of the building and harden them? It probably doesn't add as many beds as people would hope as a permanent solution. But we also have to remember when it comes to those shelters, they're supposed to be a lifeboat, not a love boat. And that's how we've proceeded. We did get the money through the federal. I think it was a little bit more expensive maybe than originally anticipated. And everybody's been working on that. And Steve, who would have been here, has been working with Jody's team through capital projects to move that forward. Not sure the latest on the construction design, but it has been a good partnership with the school district. You're absolutely right.
Thank you. Mr. Dumas?
Yeah, it absolutely is a wonderful partnership working with the county and the emergency operations team. So 3 schools, Northport High, Taylor Ranch, and Gulf Gate is where the funding has been distributed to add to our capacity. In terms of project schedule, all of those designs are done, and they are actually now starting on some of the construction in limited areas only because we got school in session. So we obviously got to work around that. But the anticipated completion date for all of those projects would be mid to end of June. And so we should be ready to go to have some of that added capacity and protection at those sites, hopefully, if we are having to face a storm this summer during the hurricane season. So anyway, yes, we are working towards that, and it is a great partnership with the county.
Where are those sites at?
So we are doing some modifications. I would call that wind protection at Northport High and at Gulf Gate Elementary, and actually doing some work at Taylor Ranch Elementary to bring that on as an additional shelter site.
Good, thank you. And next we have Ed Lavallee with the City of Venice.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for inviting us, and we always look forward to this conclave because it's an opportunity to share information. It's been great information today, and we certainly enjoy and appreciate our relationship with the school district. So I just have a couple of comments to make. One's an ask and one's an offering. But before that, I also want to indicate that one of our council members, Nick Petrov, has joined us here, as well as some of our council members online. But Nick won't say this. He's a pretty humble guy, but just wanted to say for those that don't know, we're really proud of Nick because he has a very significant leadership role statewide in the state's effort to combat COVID. He's often, most of the time, away from us in the fields, away from his family, and he's been doing this for a long time. So he is truly a hero, and we really appreciate him for what he does, and we're very proud of him. Nick won't say that about himself, but he's sitting right next to me. My comments are brief. I made a couple of prepared remarks just to make this efficient, to provide a backdrop. The impact of COVID-19 pandemic on our entire government complex has caused us to carefully examine our service delivery systems and to modify our protocols to meet the necessary health and safety requirements. At the local government level, we introduced virtual meeting options to enable us to maintain continuity of service while reducing health risks. Educational systems have introduced online and remote teaching models. Our elected officials in Venice would appreciate a briefing from the school district in some capacity on the success of these educational models, including your perceived levels of success, operational and fiscal challenges, and resultant strategies developed to maintain your high level of performance. While the school system operates under a countywide structure, we'd be interested in measures that might be taken at the local level to support the school district in this time of challenge. We might begin with a sharing of concepts on modified operational rules and service delivery protocols. I've had some discussions with some of your people, some of your leadership people, and we just think that you've done a great accomplishment in the way you have modified your systems to keep your performance levels up. And as much as we talk about collaboration, and we all do, and we benefit from it, we operate oftentimes in silos. So we think at some point, a forum would be helpful where we could learn from each other. Some of these changes that we've taken place, including some of the virtual meetings and some of the other things we've actually adopted from the private business world that were awkward in the public environment, but now seem to be state processes, and the virtual meetings and working away from the office are some of them. We think a forum or the creation of a booklet or sharing of information would be beneficial to all, and maybe confirming in our minds that we can modify permanently some of our performance conditions that won't compromise our levels of security and performance and leadership and discipline, but at the same time, maybe offer other opportunities, flexibilities that will actually enable us to increase our performance levels. So that's just one, it's an ask that the school district might take a lead. You've done so much in terms of managing your systems, although I note that most of your students appear to be back in school. That's a great accomplishment. But we would offer it at the local level to meet with your leadership in Venice, or on a broader basis if you'd like to entertain that. But we just think something like a forum, or whether it's in person or virtual, a product, maybe a set of systems, some protocols, some booklets that we might glean opportunities and learn some things about the way business might be done in the future on a more permanent basis from things that we learned in this interim. One of the suggestions that we've received from one of our council members, who's actually online today, is an offering from us to work with the school district to engage some of your students, the high school level perhaps, to work with some of our elderly people who in this time of challenge are trying to figure a way to get registered to get a shot. Some of them are not IT conversant, and they are really challenged as much as some of the other challenges that are obvious for all. But for those that are really challenged, is that me?
It's class schedule.
Oh, okay. That we might create some partnerships with students that are IT conversant to help some of our older population get registered and become more aware and in tune to the opportunities to get vaccinated and whatever may come in the future. So that's an ask. The second comment is about some of our history, and some of you, including Jane Goodwin, has participated in this. City of Venice hosts an annual Student Government Day, a program that invites selected high school students to spend a day with local government officials. The program offers opportunities for students to learn about the various professions and vocations that comprise public service. The day culminates with the students actually conducting a city council meeting, which frightened our actual council members the first time we did this. The success of this program expressed interest by students to learn more about career opportunities in local government. Our city utilities department, one of our largest government sections in terms of employees and size of operating, is offering an opportunity. an opportunity for an internship that incorporates many disciplines, including engineering, GIS mapping, research, public relations, public outreach, various levels of management and leadership, budgeting, and other operational level vocational functions. The city is offering to partner with the school district at the high school level to create an internship program for students who may have an interest in local government as a career. The model is conceived would engage a limited number of students selected by the school for a short-term internship with our professionals at the Utilities Department. And again, this is an outgrowth of the Student Government Day program, which has been very successful. And we get a lot of asks at the end of that day, can I learn more? Can I get involved in more? But there are some eye openings for students who recognize there are things in public service that they didn't understand, that see in the business world, but not necessarily as partnership opportunities in public service. So this is our utilities director reaching out, asking if the school is at all interested in an internship program, no expense to you other than the scheduling, to offer some students on a selective basis a broader look and a more in-depth opportunity to determine if they'd like to follow a public service career. So those are my two remarks. I appreciate the opportunity to be here and as ever, appreciate the comments by the other participants. Thank you.
Thank you. Do you have anything to comment on that? You were vigorously writing over here.
I have an overall comment of just, I know personally new coming into Sarasota County, I do appreciate the meetings that we have had together each month and getting to know each and every one of you. I do appreciate that. And thank you so much for taking the time to be here today. I know you are all very, very busy and we do appreciate you coming and talking through some of these items as we all work together collectively and collaboratively. And I just look forward to working with each and every one of you here today. So thank you very much.
Yes, thank you. We are on schedule here. I'd like to mention too that we used to go down to South County and have a meeting in Venice and Northport every year. But of course, COVID has put that on the chopping block until things improve. But I know that, I stand ready, and I think Dr. Asplin would too. If any of you would like an update, and I say when we bring it to your commission, I mean, it's basically to the people who watch your commission meetings and everything. We'd be happy to come down and talk to you on whatever it is you want us to speak about regarding the schools in your area. We're definitely open to that, and just, call the school district and we'll try to set something up. We now have some time. If anyone wants to add anything, we've got 10 minutes. Ms. Luke?
We did that just at our last meeting with Vice Principal Julie King. She came in and spoke to us about Northport High. Very proud of that school that we have. They're very proud of what you guys do to accomplish it. A rating. They are now a VPA, winning award of category of 4 different categories. Just very proud of their Hero and Pride program that they have. So thank you. And I think it is educational and beneficial if somebody from the school board or schools come and talk to the public in those meetings. It's very informative, gives you that community and home-based feeling.
Thank you. Anyone else? Well, then we will adjourn 10 minutes early. Thank you all for coming. Look forward to getting together again next year. And again, reach out to us if there's something we can do for you at your meetings or just in your discussions one-on-one. Thank you.
Thank you.